Good evening, Twitter, X. Um, the title on this post says it all, I guess. There's no First Amendment freedom in Texas. As you probably noticed, I went live just a few minutes ago with a message that I recorded specifically on my Twitter feed to be able to retweet as a response to the Attorney General of Texas. And it's with respect to the situation that is going on involving him and Annunciation House, which is a charitable Catholic organization in El Paso that deals with a lot of immigrants coming into the country, basically feeding the needy, I guess, feeding and helping them out. Something that in itself is not illegal by any way, shape, or form. But the fact of the matter is that Ken Paxton is adamantly trying to shut them down, trying to criminalize them for aiding immigrants who are here, who come into the country, I'm assuming under asylum, processed immigrants that arrive seeking shelter with this organization. Maybe there are some illegal immigrants that approach it. But I don't think that this organization can discriminate in that respect. And I'll explain why in just a minute. The fact of the matter is that Attorney General Ken Paxton wrote them a letter or visited them asking for documentation, and he gave them 24 hours to produce it, which is unusual. They were being an NGO, being a nonprofit. Obviously, they were trying to be very, I guess, careful in what they did, or what they were doing, and they requested that a judge review the letter, review the situation, and determine what documents the Attorney General was allowed access to or authorized the request. Well, Paxton didn't like that. He resued in the same court, I believe, the NGO, Annunciation House, saying that he wanted to revoke their license to operate in Texas because they're not cooperating with his request. Now, this opens up a whole Pandora's box, legal logistical issues that the Attorney General would have to deal with. The major one is that by going through all this rigmarole, he is in fact blatantly violating the First Amendment right of this organization as ordered to them in the Constitution. Can he legally do that? I don't know. So what's happening now is all this is going to be determined in a court of law tomorrow at 1 o'clock as to what's going to happen. The reason that I decided to go do a second live and address this publicly is because what Ken Paxton is doing, in my opinion, he is setting precedents. He is dealing with dangerous precedents and dangerous legal issues. One, because he is, as I said, it's a First Amendment violation. He is infringing on the First Amendment rights of Annunciation House to do what it is they do. We have to understand what these religious organizations do. A lot of what their missions are Bible related, whether they're Catholic, whether they're Baptist, whether they're Methodist, whether they're Presbyterian, Episcopalian. Most of these religious organizations are Bible based in one way or another. The Bible is very clear what we're to do as an organization. Christ in the Bible was very specific, and he said, and at least that you helped with these, you have helped me. and he talks about those that were hungry, that did not have clothing and whatnot, you know. And then he talks about those that didn't. He's like, well, and they're asking, well, when did we not, help you? And he says, well, you didn't give me clothing when I was naked. You didn't feed me when I was hungry. So basically, the teaching is there. This is a central teaching that most religious organizations do or observe. I don't think that organizations, especially Catholic as Protestant, are really given the license to discriminate or to profile outside of biblical teachings. The fact that they're feeding immigrants, they could feed, as I said, they could be feeding immigrants that are here under asylum, that have been released into the country, awaiting their process. There could be some that are here illegally, but is it the call of this religious organization, such as Annunciation House, to profile all these immigrants that are coming in and say, okay, choose which ones they want to feed, they want to help, they want to clothe? Or common sense would say they're going to approach it with a biblical perspective, and they are not going to deny anybody they're not going to deny anybody help based on their race, their immigration status, because that's not what they're about. So it's this very, very specific point that makes what Ken Paxton is doing a First Amendment violation. The case right now is in state district court. I would not be surprised if this were to escalate to a federal court. Now, if it were to go to a federal court, I'm sure that this organization would have one hell of a First Amendment case. First Amendment case because Paxton would be infringing on the First Amendment violation, and he's also infringing on determining the nonprofit status of this organization. If this organization is a federal nonprofit, which I think it is, because most Catholic organizations are federally nonprofit. I mean, I've been active in churches where we have our own 501c3 federal nonprofit status. If he's trying to infringe on the federal nonprofit status of an organization, he is basically barking up the wrong tree, because Paxton has no authority whatsoever to determine the nonprofit status or federal nonprofit status of a religious organization. And that's something that, in this case, the IRS or the State Department, or maybe the DOJ would have to make the determination, So that's what makes this whole thing, very delicate. What's stopping Annunciation House from filing a federal lawsuit? I don't think anything right now. If they have a clear First Amendment case, then they have a very, 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 very strong likelihood of winning the case on the merits. It's just a matter of seeing how this will progress. I guess they're giving it a chance through the state, because they want to make sure that they've gone that route before they go to federal, because the federal court will probably say, did you take this to state court? If Annunciation House says, yes, we took it to state court, this was the result, this is why we're filing the federal lawsuit, then they would have covered their bases with respect to state litigation, and then would have a very much stronger federal case against Attorney General Ken Paxton. The other thing also is that what makes this case remarkable is that by doing all of this, Attorney General Ken Paxton is making a very, very bold and dangerous statement. And that is that there will not be a First Amendment right in Texas. Now, why do I say that? Because basically, by disrupting or disrespecting this First Amendment right that Annunciation House has, they're saying, okay, they can't use the right, then nobody has the right to the freedom of speech, to freedom of religion. And, because that's what the First Amendment in the First Amendment entails. Is that something that we want to make Texas known for? Is that there's no freedom, no First Amendment freedoms, or you cannot defend your First Amendment freedoms in the state of Texas. It's very concerning if you think about it, because that means that anybody, maybe even myself, example, if we wanted to voice our opinions, either on social media, for example, like what I'm doing now, if Ken Paxton were successful in this endeavor that he's currently in, he could easily quash anybody or everybody that disagrees with him on social media, in public, because basically he's saying, okay, you do not have the First Amendment right to do so. I mean, it's scary to think that an attorney general in a state like Texas would be brave enough to say that he has that authority to do that. That's not something that, do we want him to be able to do that? I think what it boils down to is the old saying that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think that is part of the problem now, in this day and age. That, and I hate to speak bad about a political party, but the reality is when it comes to the Conservative Party is trying to reach or obtain absolute power. And in the process of obtaining absolute power, they are becoming absolutely corrupted. It's a hard reality that it is going to be difficult, if not impossible, to debate and deny. But it's the sad reality of what we're living in today, because for example, another video tweet that I mentioned recently, I said that they're dealing with broken ideology in the sense that a lot of the things they've done, they've not really thought out the process, the way they should have, and they've been leaving a lot of loose ends, and it's created controversies and issues. Well, that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Make everybody aware that what's going on here in Texas may jeopardize our First Amendment rights. And I think as Texans, we need to be very careful about what this Attorney General is doing. Leave your comments, your concerns. I would love to see what you think about this post, about what I'm saying, what I've been talking about.